Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening in. This is Old Man Troy, joined by the spectacular youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. Youngster, I got to share with those that celebrate Easter. Happy Easter weekend. We're recording the show on Friday, Good Friday, if you do celebrate the Easter holiday. But it is Saturday, well, probably Saturday, Sunday, maybe Monday when you're listening. But I hope everybody had a happy Easter or is going to have a happy Easter. Youngster, how are things down in Florida leading the bachelor life right now? The wife is gone for a little bit.
Wife's gone for a bit. I'm hosting parties. There's tons of girls in the place right now, so doing well.
Yeah, I bet you're having a lot of fun. Now, I know you miss your wife.
I do, but, it is what it is.
Well, we have a great show today, and I told you before when we were doing our pregame, I am all jacked up about today's topic. We actually came up with it earlier in the week. Trey McGowan's transferred from Pitt to Nebraska, and so we have a Twitter poll up. So those listening, and go take the Twitter poll at Youngster Old Man. What school is going to make the NCAA tournament? Again, we're going to talk a little more in depth about why we came up with this topic as the show goes on. It'll probably be near the end. We also have some transfer news in the Big Ten, youngster. I guess when you told me about it, then I looked at it and I'm like, that's kind of a weird move on his part, but we'll talk about that. And then I think the biggest news, or some of the big news surrounding coronavirus, was the cancellation of all spring sports. And then the NCAA said all spring athletes could have an additional year of eligibility. However, it is up to the school if they want to allow this extra year of eligibility. And my good old Wisconsin Badgers and Barry Alvarez, who was a coach that resurrected Badger football, publicly came out and said, guess what? My spring athletes, no additional year. So that kind of, if I'm an athlete, it kind of kicks me in the you-know-whats. But we'll talk about that later. But before we get into that, youngster, I told you I wanted to rant for just a little bit. And because it just drives me crazy. You're an essential worker. You're out there in your minuscule produce job, which is not minuscule now, and I've said that. I'm an essential worker for Pepsi-Cola. Not like pop is an essential part of life, but it is. We distribute juice and water. But you and I are out there every day working, which I'm thankful for. I get paid every week. I'm still working, affecting my paycheck a little bit with less hours, but I'm still working a full-time job. But there's something that really has irked me all week. And our governor in Pennsylvania is like, if you leave, wear a mask, wear gloves, all this PPE, protect yourself. I understand this fully, Kevin. I really do. And it's great if you understand how to use the things properly. So I've got two little examples. You work in produce. You wear gloves. You handle the produce from when it gets off the truck to the shelf. You're not licking it. You're not sneezing on it. You're not coughing on it. But you're handling it with gloves, correct?
Correct.
And you put it in the little bin. And then you leave the little bin. This is my rant and rave. So people are wearing gloves. Great. You're protecting yourself. You're not going to get the virus on your skin. And you can throw the gloves away when you're done. Perfect. Right. You're not going to get the disease. However, just because you have gloves on does not entitle you to go around and touch 10 oranges or 10 potatoes or 8 boxes of cereal, because I've seen it all the time, all week, Kevin. People wearing gloves, they go in and they're touching all the produce. They want the perfect piece of produce.
Yeah.
And you know what? 2 months ago, 3 months ago, understandable. Still, I'm not one that touches 8,000 things because I know a lot of people have dirty hands. This was before the coronavirus.
Yeah.
I don't like to even buy fruit and vegetables that way because I know people touch them all the time.
Yeah.
But now you've got gloves on and you're touching 80 million things in the store. What if you happen to touch the coronavirus? Okay, you're not going to get it, but you've just spread it to like 20 other people now. because you've touched 20 other things. It makes no sense to me. So if you're going to wear gloves, people, don't touch 80 things in a store. It's like the old thing when I was growing up. My mom said, you touch it and break it, you buy it. Here's the new rule that I have, Kevin. You go into a store now with the coronavirus pandemic, you touch it, you buy it. So you're going to touch 8 boxes of cereal? Buy 8 boxes of cereal, please, because I don't want your disease that you're spreading around. Then the mask thing gets me too. I know you wear it to protect others, like so you don't sneeze on them, cough on them, droplets on them. I saw a guy today as I went to the store. Pulled down his mask, had gloves on, great. He's got a lot of PPE. He's protecting himself and others. Not really when he takes his gloves, rubs his or wipes his nose of something and puts his mask above his nose again. What did that solve?
Right.
Rant done. I'm sorry. I had to get it off my mind because I just went to the store before we recorded the show and I saw that. And when I saw that, I'm like, I'm ranting on the show today because I'm tired of it. PPE is meant for a purpose, and a lot of people have it on because they were told to, and they don't understand how to use it. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. In short, I mean, gloves can help you not, again, get the virus onto your skin where you're touching things. But grocery workers, I mean, we're sitting there touching hundreds of things constantly, basically. And, so it's helping us in a selfish way, but we're not helping customers either because we have to touch up the green grapes, and make it look neat so that people want to actually buy it. And then we go over to the red grapes, and then we make it look neat so that people want to buy it. And then we go over to the oranges, and then we make it look neat, and then so people want to buy it. And then we go over to the kiwi, and then we touch that, and then we make it all neat so that people want to buy it. Basically, we're going through the entire department there with our single pair of gloves. We're not going to change gloves after literally every single kiwi we touch. So anyone who touches one kiwi and then touches another and you have the coronavirus, boom, it's on 2 kiwis. You buy one, that other one is diseased, and the grocery worker is going to sit there and touch the diseased kiwi and move on. And no one has any idea. It's not a visual thing. So, I mean, anyone wearing gloves, I mean, great, you're protecting yourself in that one little area, part of your skin, your hands. You're not protecting literally everything unless you're in a full suit and you got a mask, and even at that point, you're still not perfectly safe. But in any case,
like the gentleman who wiped his nose today and then touched his pants. So if he rubs up against something and happened to have the coronavirus, now that coronavirus is going on whatever he rubbed up against.
Yeah, exactly.
Just saying.
Yeah, the only way to 100% be safe is if you don't have it, and you literally are quarantined in your house by yourself, and that's it. Or you're quarantined with other people.
If you're in your house by yourself and not leaving, go lick the walls for all I care.
Yeah, absolutely. Do whatever you want.
I mean,
anyway. But yeah, it's not exactly sanitary just because a bunch of people are wearing gloves. That's, but whatever.
But I do want to do this before we move on. I want to thank you, youngster, for being out there in the grocery store doing what you do. I mean, you're putting yourself at huge risk. Like you said, you're wearing gloves, but you're touching the fruit that these ladies or lady that I saw that's rummaging through all the fruit to find the perfect one. I mean, and then you've got to go back, like you said, and you've got to touch it. So if you touch it and then all of a sudden you have your gloves on, you're taking those off and your skin is exposed to it, you could very well then get the disease yourself. So I thank you for what you do, youngster. We joke that it's a minuscule produce job, but I do appreciate what you do. I appreciate every essential worker that is listening out there. I know I'm one, but it's not like I feel like I'm putting myself in harm's way. I mean, I know I touch a lot of things, but I'm basically making sure you have pop and water. That's it. My stuff, to me, I know it's an essential business. I know I do all this stuff, but I don't see myself in the same light as a grocery worker exposed to a lot more than I am. Nurses, doctors, all those people that are exposed a little higher than I am. Yeah, there's people around, but really a lot of times I'm stuck in a cooler and I'm just, rotating stock. So I'm really not around a lot of people, and so I don't feel like I'm at high risk, unlike you. Right. And I thought of you when I saw that lady doing that. I'm like, man, this is what the youngster does. So, okay,
Right.
we can move on unless you got anything else to add.
No, yeah, for sure. All the, essential workers, thank you. And, for me, like you said, maybe I'm more high risk than you are, but there's certainly more high risk people like nurses and whatnot who are literally coming in contact with these people trying to save their lives. So they're certainly worthy of, the kind words for sure. Anyway, so we can move on. What topic? We kind of have three here.
Well, that's why I love this show. That's why I love the big show, because we don't have a radio time constraint like we do for our radio show. If you want to listen to our radio shows, folks, follow us on Twitter at Youngster Old Man. Go take the Twitter poll. But on Radio Youngster, we got 1 hour. That's it. We're on a time crunch. Big, yeah, we want to keep it around an hour because we don't want to lose interest. But we don't have a time constraint, so we can do whatever the heck we want, which I love. Let's talk about Barry Alvarez first, since the state of Wisconsin holds a special place in my heart. And Barry Alvarez, Kevin, this NCAA did a great thing for the spring athletes. And we ran another poll about whether or not you thought that athletes in the winter should be given an extra year. And the last I checked, Youngster, and I haven't checked lately, I checked this morning, 50% said yes, winter athletes should get it. 50% said no. So it was half and half from our listening audience. Wasn't many votes, but half the people said yes, half the people said no. Barry Alvarez, Youngster, saying no to the spring athletes. He's saying, no way, Jose. We're not giving you an extra year of eligibility. When the NCAA said they will grant additional eligibility to all spring athletes, but it's at the discretion of the school. And Barry Alvarez publicly came out, Youngster, and said, nope, not at Wisconsin. Sorry, you're SOL. You lost your season. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. Before I give you my 2 cents, I'm going to turn it back over to you, because there's 2 ways to look at this from Barry Alvarez's standpoint. When I first heard it, I'm like, man, you're just being a you-know-what. But then as I sat down and thought about it last night after I heard it on the radio, I'm like, part of this will make sense to me, and I'll explain that reasoning here in a little bit. But, Youngster, I'm going to turn it over to you. I know when we talked in the pregame that you're like, you had not heard of it, so you didn't really research it. It's kind of the first you're hearing of it. So what do you think about Barry Alvarez telling all of his spring athletes, sorry, you're just out of luck?
My initial thoughts are basically the same as your initial thoughts, and I'll be curious to hear your reasoning on the other side of it, because to me it doesn't really make sense. I guess if there are a certain amount of scholarships, and so you're having to deny incoming freshmen because you're keeping seniors that are staying an extra year. All these sports have a finite amount of scholarships to give out, and so if you have 15 kids on scholarship, you have 3 seniors, and 3 seniors are leaving, you will recruit 3 freshmen most likely to come into your program because there's 3 scholarships to be had, right? Makes sense. So if those 3 seniors come back, or if 2 come back, if 1 comes back, then obviously things get a little more interesting. So that part, I guess I can understand. Financial aid stuff, and the NCAA has a fund that's helping pay for increased scholarships for returning seniors. So money isn't necessarily the biggest issue here, especially for a school like Wisconsin. I think that getting help to pay for these increased scholarships for seniors that are coming back, I don't think that's a huge reason as to why Alvarez would say, no, get out of here, you have to leave. I don't know. So I'm curious to hear you talk about it, but to me, it doesn't make a ton of sense, really. I'm reading some of his quotes here. What we try to do is encourage our seniors to go ahead, and if you're going to graduate and move on with your life. We appreciate everything you've done, but move forward. The future is in question, and we can't promise you anything. I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the other side of it. Because, again, unless it's a scholarship issue, a huge scholarship issue, then I don't necessarily get it. And to go across all spring sports and say, hey, it doesn't matter what your scholarship situation is, all these 2020 seniors that are eligible to be 2021 seniors, no, we're not having you. So I'm curious to hear, I guess, your thoughts from the other side.
So the initial thought when I heard it on the radio, and I heard it on the way home yesterday. It's exactly what I thought. I'm like, man, Barry, you're really being a you-know-what. I mean, that really sucks for those guys because I was a senior, and if I would have lost my senior year, I redshirted my freshman year so I could play an additional year because I was going to sit on the bench. So I wanted to play for 4 years and not waste a year of eligibility being a 5-minute, 10-minute spot player in a game. I redshirted on purpose because I wanted to enjoy 4 full years of playing soccer, not 3. I wanted to play 4, knowing that I wasn't going to graduate in 4 years. And not many people do. The real smart people out there that do, and I'm sure there's some listening in, that you can get out and get through school in 4 years, good for you. I really admire you. How long did it take you, youngster, at the great University of Wisconsin-Whitewater?
It took me 5. Could I have done in 4 realistically? Sure. It took me a while to decide on my minor. That definitely pushed it to 4.5. And if I would have sat there and taken, summer classes and whatnot, could I have finished in 4? Sure. But at the end of the day, people sometimes will change majors halfway through, change majors after the fact, after you graduate, and you're like, wait a minute, I actually want to do this. So
that's one of my friends who spent 6.5 years at the great University of Wisconsin-Whitewater.
Right, exactly. So
any young kids listening in that are in school right now, and if you're thinking about changing your degree after you've been in school like 2.5 years, do not decide to change to be a teacher. Because if you do that, you basically have to start college all over. That's what my friend did, youngster. 2.5 years in, changed his major to teaching, spent 6.5 years at Whitewater. I mean, it's a great school. I wouldn't mind spending 6.5 years there, but I don't know if I'd want to go to school 6.5 years. But he did. Right. So didn't mean to interrupt, but like you, I got done in 4.5 years, and I'll tell you my last semester was pretty much a cakewalk. I could have probably gotten done in 4, but I knew I got to play another year of soccer in the fall. Now, I took summer classes, spent some time, got some extra credits there. I did some interim classes in the winter session. So I could have been done in 4, but I also took a very light load in the fall when I played soccer. I had to. I think I told you that story that I almost failed out my first year because I was taking like 18 credits, 6 classes, and playing soccer at the same time. Just because you redshirt does not mean you don't have to go to practice. The only thing I didn't get to do is go to games, playing games and suit up. So I really put myself behind the 8 ball, and then after that I just took 12 credits. I mean, I ended up dropping my classes in the fall to get down to 12, but that's why I had to take summer class because I had to catch up. So, but realistically, even somebody not playing sports, it usually takes more than 4 years to go to school. And there's usually another half year there. So I want to go back, and I didn't mean to get off topic there, but with Barry, I looked at it, Kevin, and I was like, man, I went to school. I would have been really, really mad at you if you canceled my season and didn't give me another year to play. Now, I played at a Division III, so it was just more eligibility-wise. It wasn't about scholarship, and it would have been my financial aid I would have had to worry about. So when I look at it, Kevin, I sat down and thought, and I again, I'm not saying what he did is right, because if I was an athlete, and I'm still on that, I'd be pissed. Excuse my language, but this is a podcast, not the radio, so we're okay there. I would be totally pissed off as an athlete, and I wouldn't really give a crap about my scholarship situation. And I think a lot of seniors, Kevin, scholarships are great, but to be honest, if you really wanted that scholarship, then take the scholarship, but just let me play. I'll come up with my student financial aid. Because I probably can. I mean, I'm not saying everybody could because it's based on need. But if I'm a senior and I really wanted to play, I'll take out a darn loan for a semester to play. Or a year to play. Because I bet you, like, we think of spring sports and we think of baseball. But what about the track players? What about the golfers, if that golf? What about, women's softball? There's a lot of things in the spring. And a lot of these people in the spring outside of baseball are probably not going to play professional sports. So that senior year, and even the baseball players, I mean, how many players on that Wisconsin baseball team are actually playing professional? I don't remember. I can't recall any players in Major League Baseball in the majors, in the big show, that went to the University of Wisconsin. I'm sure there might be some, but Wisconsin is not a baseball powerhouse. So these guys are sitting there. This is their senior year, their last go-round to play ball. I don't understand that. If it's Wisconsin football, a little bit different maybe, because a lot of Wisconsin players play in the NFL. But baseball, Kevin, can you recall any Wisconsin baseball players in Major League Baseball right now? There's probably a ton in the minors, but I don't know of any that are in the big show. I'd have to look at it.
No, I have no idea. For Whitewater, I know they have, I believe it's 2 in the minors, the last time I checked.
Good old Bobby Wickman is probably the most decorated Whitewater baseball player. I went to school with Bobby Wickman. I knew Wickman on a casual basis. You know, him and I didn't hang out and drop down beers at the bar, but I knew Bobby Wickman, and he actually had a physical defect on one of his fingers that really helped him pitch. I think he used it he used it to his advantage. Anybody listening in, look up Bob Wickman and read about his story. It's really unique. And he was a good guy. I was a casual acquaintance. I ran into him. Him and I knew of each other. So, but we didn't hang out. But Bob Wickman, I think, is probably the most decorated, at least that I remember, of Whitewater baseball players, because he played for the Yankees, played in the major leagues, had a good major league career. But yeah, Whitewater baseball is good, youngster. They're very good.
Yeah. I have a shirt that mentions them winning a national title in the same academic year as men's basketball and football, which just imagine a D1 school winning football, baseball, and men's basketball all in the same year, national titles. It's quite ridiculous.
That's why I use the adjective the Great University of Wisconsin Whitewater.
Yeah. I was blessed with academic success, sport success.
Well, I'll tell you what, youngster, you had great academic success too. Not me so much, but you did.
No, not really.
You have a diploma.
I have a degree. Yeah, I have a degree. But realistically, if you try in college, if you really try, and you can't make it, then so be it. But nowadays, to me, and maybe it was different back then, but to me, a college degree, and this is, I think, how many bosses look at it in companies across the country, you have a college degree, that means basically the same thing as a high school degree, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
It does now. It does in today's world. Man, this show has really gotten off the beaten path. It really has, because that's why I love doing shows with you, because you talk and then my mind goes in 800 different directions. Probably not a great thing, but it really helps our conversation in the show when there's not a lot of sports topics. So when I went to school, and I'll age myself, youngster, I graduated college in 1992. Back in the 80s, a college degree meant a whole hell of a lot. Like, it was important. I was the first person in my family to go to school, and everybody thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right.
Because you needed a college degree in the late 80s, early 90s to do anything. I shouldn't say to do anything, but to, and I'm air quoting, to have a chance at being successful. To get your foot in the door, you needed to have a college degree. Today, it's a norm. It really is. And I'm not downplaying it. College is important, especially for some areas of degree. But I look at what I do, youngster. I mean, I work for Pepsi-Cola, and I'll tell you what, I love it. I've been blessed. I'm good at it. I'm being rewarded through Pepsi-Cola, and I'm working my way, and I'm probably going to retire from Pepsi. Do I really need a college degree for what I'm doing? Probably not. Right. Probably not. But it's a requirement to apply for the job.
Right.
So you have had to make it through 4.5 years of school. It's a norm.
Yeah.
It's just a norm, and like you said, it's almost like a high school diploma now.
Yeah, it's expected from everyone. And there are some companies, I know, like my grocery store chain down here in Florida, basically they don't hire from the outside. Like, I'm a little produce worker, and the produce assistant manager, produce manager, they were in Publix for years before they were able to become assistant managers, and
got to work your way up.
Yada, yada, yada. Right. So there are obviously companies like that. It doesn't take a college degree to do what I'm doing there. But, in general, if you're looking for a, I guess, quote unquote, big boy job, a college degree, that's one little point on your resume, and then the rest of it is what you did outside of it. Like, because I went to college, I was able to become a sports editor for my college newspaper, and that's what I could highlight coming out of college on my resume, was my experience with that. Being able to interview and go to national championships across the country and do all that sort of stuff, that helped me get sports writing jobs. Me just graduating with a journalism degree doesn't really do much. Now it's different if you go to, Northwestern, if you go to some, that holds more weight. But outside of a couple schools in certain areas, I mean, it's just, yep, you have a journalism degree. Congratulations. Now, what did you do outside of it? That's,
sure. No, and I agree with you, youngster. And I think there's some bias, too. If you have a degree from Northwestern, Stanford, right. Syracuse is a really good broadcasting school.
Yeah.
There's some bias there. And it hurts people like you and me trying to get a radio show. It really does. To be honest, I'll say this egotistically, the youngster and I are as good as half of these morning shows that are out there, if not better. We are. But you have the journalism degree from the great University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. I have a master's degree from Full Sail University in new media journalism. Who are we? We're just two yahoots on the radio, but I think we're good. So I want to go to the other side where some of you understands it from Barry's point, that you're looking at it, youngster, and yes, a lot of these schools are going to be running at deficits because they lost all of the money from the NCAA tournament. However, when I look at it, it's like, okay, you're looking financially. How many students are in the spring that are going to need to go to school? And I just answered the question like 15 minutes ago. Go to these students, say, look, we'll grant you another year of eligibility, but you can't get a scholarship because we've already given it to this freshman. We've verbally said to this freshman that we're going to give you a scholarship. There are ways around the financial ramifications, but that was my thinking of why Barry said that. That, okay, we have X amount of seniors on the baseball team, and I'll just use a fictitious number, 7. We've got 7 seniors graduating. So we have 7 freshmen taking those scholarships. So now, oh my God, the school's overloaded. You know what, youngster? If they can't bite the bullet on 7 scholarships for 1 year, shame on Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But I'm trying to think of this logically of why Barry would say that. Okay, well, you're looking at it like, okay, there's 7 extra players now that we'd have on this roster. And I haven't looked at the finite details of the rule. I don't know if the NCAA is going to expand rosters next year, because if they're not, I haven't looked that deep into it. That could be another reason why. If you've got X amount of seniors, but the NCAA is going to stand pat on the roster size, which there is, then these freshmen that are coming in, they get no opportunity next year to play. So I can understand that part of it. So there are some of that from the business, and I'm air quoting the business side of it, that Barry's saying no way. But every time I look at it, I can contradict it with something else. I really can, especially for spring sports. You and I already debated the winter sports. I'm okay with it. The season was done. It's the NCAA tournament. It sucks. We move on. But for these spring guys, they didn't even get to play, maybe a game or two. So I really feel bad for these spring sport athletes. And I really think Barry coming out and saying that, at first I said, okay, well, you are you-know-what. Thinking about it, it's one of those things, I can understand the business side of it, but I still think you're a you-know-what right now. Because if I was an athlete and I went back and I thought about it, if I was a spring athlete and didn't get to play my senior year, that would suck. So I think Barry's wrong right here doing it. Again, I can understand some of the business side of it, youngster. If you're looking at roster size, if the NCAA is not going to increase the roster size, I can see it financially. and not just from a scholarship standpoint. Let's say the NCAA expands the roster by X amount of players, right? And says, okay, your roster can be exempt for those seniors. Fine. Let's say it is 7 on the baseball team. But then let's say it's 2 on tennis, and all of a sudden you're up to like 35 spring athletes. You still have to then, in the program, you have to incur the cost of those additional players. And what I mean by that, youngsters, you've got to gear them, you've got to feed them, you've got to do all of these things. So it does incur expense by having additional players on your roster. Then that's coming from a former coach. Cost per player. What does it cost me per player on my roster to have them here? So there are additional expenses that can incur. That's the only thing I can see why Barry's saying that. But it's still, again, like I said, I still think it's wrong. I think all spring athletes, if they want to play another year, they should be able to. And I think Barry's wrong. That's where I'm at, youngster. What else you got?
What did you guess? You guessed like 35 seniors for the spring?
No, I'm just guessing. I have no idea.
I'll read you a sentence quick. Alvarez said the NCAA action impacted around 35 Badger seniors.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm dead serious. UW has 10 spring sports, and then it lists the sports, but yeah, 35 Badger seniors.
Wow. I'm pretty good.
Yeah, you are.
Hit it right on the head. And I didn't even look at that. I was guessing.
Yeah. So
sometimes I amaze you, youngster.
Yes, sometimes. Yeah, I'm with you. I can understand it in the end. I think the same as you. And for him to go over coaches' heads, I would assume that not all 10 sports coaches here in the spring for Wisconsin all feel this way. But maybe they do. I don't know, I guess. But
well, and that's one thing we didn't talk about. Maybe there was a coach that didn't want it to happen and went to Barry and said, I don't want it to happen. But again, you should let it up to the individual sport and not. He's saying all spring sports. He's not saying no, but you can't do it. You can't be selective. You can't say no. We're not granting yours. And you know what, youngster? Like I said, when you're looking at these sports, and I'll go back to coaching. So I hate to say it this way, but as a coach, sometimes you want your seniors to go. If you're trying to change a culture, if you're trying to win, and maybe some of your seniors are part of the virus. We've talked about having a virus in a locker room before. There's a lot of things where maybe you want your seniors to go. Just get out of here. I want to. Yeah, it's a good segue. Let's go to that.
Yeah, Nebraska and Pittsburgh are rebuilding basketball schools. Nebraska in the Big Ten, obviously Pittsburgh in the ACC. And if you're rebuilding and you want new freshmen, new JUCO transfers, new graduate transfers coming in even, then you want your seniors to go. Like, you can be a good player, that's great, but if you're rebuilding, you kind of want them to go so that you have new blood, you can have a new identity, you can recruit more kids, yada, yada, yada.
You can recruit kids for your culture.
Right.
Because not every player, when you're a new coach, is going to buy into what you want.
Right.
And I'm not saying that just because I am not saying that for the loyal listeners. You all know I coach college soccer. That statement, Kevin, I just made was coming from experience, not from I think it might be this way. That was from experience. You take over as a coach, there's some players you want out of the program, but you can't just tell them, hey, I don't want you, get out of here. I guess you can.
Yeah.
But you also have to field the roster. And a lot of times I took over in January as a coach. I don't have time to kick people off the roster and then hope I can go out and recruit in the spring after not recruiting at all. I mean, I did. I was the assistant coach. But we didn't have enough good players for me to tell some of these players, I don't want you, get out of here. There were players that I saw as an assistant coach that I did not want in the program anymore. But guess what? I had to bite the bullet, and I had to wait till they graduated. I let them graduate the next year. So that statement I made came from experience, not from, well, yeah, this might be how it – no, that's how it is. Jeff Capel took over, and in Pittsburgh, I'm sure when he looked at the roster, he's like, good player, not the guy that I want, that I feel is part of my foundation. So –
or you could look at a player and say, bad player.
Yeah. Why was this guy ever recruited?
Right, exactly. So, but yeah, Trey McGowan's Pittsburgh Panther guard, supposedly more of a point guard, but I guess he kicked over to the shooting guard position for his sophomore year this past year. He decided he was transferring after averaging 11.6 points per game as a freshman and then 11.5 points per game as a sophomore. He said, I want out, and he chose Nebraska. So us as a Big Ten focused show, obviously this is interesting news, obviously a quality player here. And Troy did the wonderful job of putting out a poll on Twitter, @YoungsterOldMan. So if you haven't voted yet, go to @YoungsterOldMan on Twitter, twitter.com/YoungsterOldMan, all one word. And you can vote to see which team, vote on which team you think will make the NCAA tournament the fastest, the quickest. Pittsburgh or Nebraska. And I guess I should pull it up right now just to...
Yeah, pull it up because it's been a few years since either program has been in the NCAA tournament.
Right. Yeah, both have struggled. Both have gotten new coaches recently. This past year, this was Capel's second at Pitt. Is that right?
Yes, second full year.
Okay.
Well, second year because he.
Yeah. This was his second, and then I don't know why I'm blanking on the name, but the guy at Nebraska, this was his first year this past year. The old Iowa State coach. Again, I don't know why I'm blanking on the name. I'll remember it in 2 seconds when I'm done talking. But Trey McGowan's, again, so this poll, 7 votes, 6 days left as we're recording this on Friday the 10th. So got plenty of days to vote. But Pitt has 4 of the votes, and Nebraska has 3, just doing my math here. 7 votes so far, a few hours into it, and Pitt barely has the edge. So it's kind of a 50-50 split at this point, basically. And I think it's interesting, because Pitt, again, is rebuilding in the ACC, and you're losing a solid sophomore guard in McGowan's, who's going to be a junior next year. But you look at Pitt's roster, and the majority of their good players, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but one of their guards, he is let's see here. He was a freshman this past year. Xavier Johnson was, I believe he was a sophomore, if I remember correctly. Yes, he was. McGowan's was their 3rd leading scorer. Then Tony, another guard, I believe he was also a sophomore. So this Pitt team has talented guards, especially, that are young guards who can score. That's, their top 5 scorers were all guards, and they were basically all young. I guess Ryan Murphy, let me double check here. Okay, he's a junior, so he'll also be back next year. So they've got plenty of guards who are coming back into the program next year. Obviously, you look at recruiting, which I, of course, did, and Pitt has a 4-star coming in, got a couple 3-stars, 33rd ranked class in the country. They could all bust out.
Not bad for the University of Pittsburgh, youngster. And Capel, we've talked about this when he got hired. I thought it was a great hire because Capel is one heck of a recruiter. He recruited at Duke.
Yeah, he was the guy at Duke that was recruiting. Like, yes, it's Coach K. Yes, it's Duke. Yes, it's the brand. Yes, you're going to have 5-stars looking at Duke automatically because of that. But it was Capel doing the majority of recruiting.
Yeah, and the argument I've had, youngster, though, is, okay, yeah, the top players want to go to Duke, but guess what? There's also other schools out there. There's North Carolinas that are out there. There are Virginia. Tony Bennett is one heck of a recruiter. I mean, he recruits specific for his program and his style, but they've become a national power. You've got all of these schools, Kentucky, Kansas, Michigan State. You think that the only place is Duke? Right. No. If Duke has put their finger on a player, Kevin, that's a 5-star, okay, great. Yeah, Duke wants me. Oh, but so does Michigan State. Oh, that's great. So does Kansas. So does Kentucky.
Right. I mean, the list goes.
You have to.
Yeah.
I think it's harder, Kevin, to recruit a 5-star player than it is a 3-star because of all the attention the 5-star gets. That's why I give the edge in recruiting to Jeff Capel any day of the year. The guy recruited at Duke, didn't get every 5-star that he recruited, but got a lot of them. Why do you think Duke's so good? Capel was the recruiting guy. I really believe, and this comes from me being on the recruiting trail for when I coached college. Yeah, you want that great player that's over there scoring a hat trick in this tournament every game, the guy that's blazing by everybody and has great moves. Yeah, okay, well, guess what? I'm one of about 100 guys that has to go now talk to this kid.
Yeah.
Oh, guess what, though? There's a 3-star over there. He's the guy crossing the ball over to this guy scoring. I like this guy, but he's not as highly recruited. My competition just went down by 50%. Hey, I might have a better chance at this kid.
Yep.
But he fits my program. So, I mean, you look at it, and so Capel is out there recruiting, and I like it this way, Kevin. The Big Ten, the ACC, when you look at style of play, Capel knows how to win in the ACC. He's been there. He's been with Duke. He knows what you need to do in the ACC to win. Not saying Nebraska doesn't, but Capel does. And he has, if you look at Pitt basketball 3 years ago compared to where they are today, I think they're at least on solid ground. Yeah, they didn't make the tournament. They got off to a pretty good start last year, and then they pooed the bed at the end of the year. But a lot of teams are going to poo the bed at the end of the year in the ACC if you're not one of the top teams. Same thing with Nebraska. We didn't expect them to do diddly squat. They're rebuilding, and it really showed. I mean, Nebraska Northwestern, that's pretty much a W on your schedule if you're playing them. So I just like what Capel does, and I give the recruiting edge to Capel. I give the edge to Pittsburgh making the tournament before Nebraska. That's one of the reasons. I'll let you talk because I've been talking a lot.
I actually voted in the poll. I voted Nebraska. But looking more into the roster, looking more into recruiting, and, I think Capel does a better job at recruiting freshmen. I think Hoiberg, that's his name, Fred Hoiberg, I think he does an unbelievable job. He's probably second to none when it comes to transfers and JUCO kids. Just one of them was their leading scorer this past year, Cheatham, who started at, I think it was another school, and then he transferred to Marquette, and then he ended up transferring to Nebraska. I believe Cam Mack, their third leading scorer, also was a transfer, I believe. Don't quote me on it, but I know Cheatham played at Marquette at one point. So he does a masterful job at getting transfers to come in. That's the one, I guess, interesting part of this is Pittsburgh can have a better overall rebuild with Capel, and in 3 years, maybe they get to the tournament and they have a good team, and they're a 8 seed, but for Pitt, within the last 5 years or so, being an 8 seed would be amazing. For Nebraska, I think you can see a young roster, and then you get a couple JUCOs to come in, you get one grad transfer to come in, and it's like, hey, look, we have a 20-11 team, and we're in the tournament. We're a bubble team, but, I think that Hoiberg recruits almost better on a year-to-year basis and compiling a team that way. So they're just different as far as recruiting. Like, Hoiberg's fantastic at recruiting. So is Capel. They're just different at what they do. Again, Capel, I think, building a program from the bottom up, I think Capel probably does a better job. I think Hoiberg does a better job if you really want to win tomorrow and you have a shot at getting a transfer from Gonzaga who's going to be a seventh man, or a transfer from Wright State who is a senior graduate and he wants to make the NCAA tournament and he wants to play in a big conference, you can send Hoiberg over there and he can convince the hell out of the kid to go to Nebraska, like, without a doubt. So they're just different. He did that at Iowa State a ton, and those Iowa State teams just churned out really good teams, 3 seeds, 4 seeds, 5 seeds, over the course of like a 5-year span. That they were just very consistent, and they just kept getting transfer after transfer after transfer to come in. So it's just different. Both schools are bad right now. You can say that. And Nebraska, recruiting wise, just from a pure recruiting standpoint, is not at the level at Pitt. I think Nebraska's in the 80s, Pitt's in the 30s, like I mentioned. So it's different. It depends on what transfers I think that Hoiberg can bring in. But if I Who would get them there the quickest? I think the Big Ten has an advantage there because of how deep it is, and you can almost make.
And that's where I disagree with you, youngster. I disagree with you on the fact that that's why Nebraska won't make it as quick because of how deep the Big Ten is.
Right. You can get that. Yeah, you can get the counter argument there. You can say that, hey, you can go 8-12 in the Big Ten, and that's tournament worthy if you do your job in the non-conference. Like, you don't have to be average. You can be below average. You can be the 10th best team in the Big Ten and make the tournament.
Because what did we have this year? It would have been based on Lenardi's bracketology when the tournament got canceled. It was 10, correct?
Yeah.
10 teams that would have made the tournament.
Right. By the way, just quickly, they were doing the simulation of the tournament that ended last week, and can you guess what team beat who in the final of that simulation, Troy?
I want to preface this by saying I did not follow any of the simulation games, nor did I look up any. So if I pick one right, I'm probably going to do the dance of joy, probably jump up and down in my basement, hit my head on my basement ceiling. So I have no idea. I did not look at any of this, nor did I follow it because it wasn't part of DraftKings, but NFL simulation is. So I've been playing all those games and NBA. So I've been doing that. And I've been betting on table tennis, not on NCAA March Madness simulation. They should have put that in DraftKings. Maybe they couldn't due to college. I don't know. So let me see. A simulation game. Who beat who? Let me try to pick the Final Four. Let me see if I can pick one. Do you have the Final Four up? Or do you just have the championship?
I just know off the top of my head what the championship was, but I should be able to find the Final Four.
So let me pick 4 teams and see if any of the 4 were in the championship game.
Yeah, here we go.
So I'm going to say in a simulation, so this would have been played on what, PS4 is what they simulated it on, I would imagine?
Might have been PS3 because the last college basketball game was like 7 years ago or something. But, yeah.
All right. So let's see. Okay, so they did a simulation. I'm going to say if it's based off computer rankings and simulation, Michigan State made it to the Final Four.
They did.
Probably just what was that? Yes or no?
Yes, they did.
Okay, so they made it. Then I would say Duke made the Final Four if it's a college basketball simulation.
They did not.
Ooh, they did not.
They lost to Kentucky.
And then I would have said Kansas in the Final Four.
Kansas made it to the Sweet 16, and they lost to Wisconsin.
Woo!
Wisconsin.
And then then my other team in the Final Four would be Gonzaga, and I was going to say Michigan State over Gonzaga in the championship game.
Michigan State beat Florida State in the simulated
Florida State.
Yeah. They came on hot at the end of the year, yeah. Supposedly they were going to be a 2 seed.
So I would have picked the right national champion, though.
You would have. Yeah. Michigan State won it all, according to the simulation. Wisconsin
in the simulator.
Kansas in the Sweet 16. Other Big Ten notable things. Michigan State would have played Illinois in the Sweet 16, which that would have been awesome. Michigan made it to the Sweet 16, lost to Gonzaga. Gonzaga, Kentucky, Florida State, Michigan State made up the Final Four in the simulation. And then, Michigan State beat Florida State. But not a ton of Big Ten. I guess there was Big Ten success, and obviously Michigan State won the thing. Wisconsin pulled their upset. I shouldn't say not a lot of success, but there were...
Well, if that game would have been played in real life, Wisconsin-Kansas, I don't think Wisconsin would have had a chance in you-know-what.
No, I don't think so either, but...
I mean, again, they won the they won the Big Ten on the tiebreaker, but I still didn't think they were a great team. I really didn't. All right, so there's some college basketball. We got a big transfer. We got a big transfer though in the Big Ten. Not a transfer. We got a player ready to endure on the transfer portal. I'll let you take it away. You know more about it than I do. I looked it up a little bit, did a little research, but you're the guy that really wanted to talk about this.
Matt Haarms, 7'3" big. He was a junior from a basketball standpoint, but he is actually a graduating senior in terms of academics. So he is transferring. He's in the transfer portal. Again, 7'3" center from Purdue. If you've watched Purdue basketball, you probably know who Matt Haarms is. You've seen him anyway. He's a good player, and he's not Luka Garza averaging 23 and 10. He actually averaged 8 and 4 this past year. Shoots over 50%, which as a 7'3" guy, you should shoot at least 50% because most of your shots are close to the basket. So, just if you're a big man in basketball, your shooting percentage is usually higher than a guard because a guard is taking outside shots, and it's just statistically a worse shot, a harder shot to make. Anyway, for Haarms, again, he's a 7'3" guy with a bunch of length. He's not a bruiser. He's not, again, Luka Garza, in which he's going to dominate a game. He kind of added a little bit of an outside game, more so this past year. But he is a graduating senior, graduate transfer. He's going to be immediately eligible for the 2021 season, next year in college basketball. So this coming fall, it will be eligible. 2020-2021 season, this coming season, he'll be eligible. Just from the one article I read about it, this was probably a couple weeks ago when it actually came out. There were teams like Kentucky, Duke who were interested. Again, this is not some player of the year candidate player, but he's solid, and he's 7'3", and he has a wingspan of God knows what, and he can play defense, and he's a
210 career blocks.
There you go. So he's averaged at least 2 blocks per game all 3 seasons at Purdue. He is a very quality, nice interior defender who can add to your offensive game. He's a nice 7'3" college basketball player. So what team wouldn't want him, basically? So like I said, Duke, Kentucky have inquired. He hasn't picked a school yet, but it seems like he's going to have his pick of the litter wherever he wants to go, which I think is cool. I think it's cool for a Purdue big man to enter the transfer portal and say, do I want Duke? No. Kentucky? No. I don't know about Big Ten schools. I guess I'd have to look it up. But supposedly the only quote I found really was that he told Matt Painter he wanted more. And I have no idea. You can take that.
I was reading this morning, youngster. He lost some minutes this year because we all know what Purdue does. They build with very good guard play, and then they want to have that big guy in the middle. They always recruit the big guys. You're always going to have guys in the middle that are rim protectors at Purdue. They will always have that guy, and then they're going to have guards that can shoot. And
2 years ago, 2 years ago, he averaged like 23 minutes a game. This past year, he averaged 20 and a half. It dipped a little bit. Points per game went down a little bit.
This could be the situation, youngster, though, where you're an older player, and we've talked about this on the show. As a college coach, you're going to recruit better than what you have. And
Sure.
If you don't, you're not going to last in college athletics. You need to recruit better than what you have. When I look at this, maybe Haarms looked at what was underneath him. His minutes went down. It doesn't seem like a lot, 3 minutes. But as a player, you know how much you're playing. And that 3 minutes can seem like a lot. It can seem like a whole heck of a lot. And all of a sudden your minutes are reduced, and you're looking below you, and you're seeing this freshman that you look at him and go, man, this guy's as good as I am. And he's a younger player. And he fits more into what coach wants to do than I do. And I'm almost on my way out. Yeah, I've earned my time, but Big Ten college basketball is about getting to the NCAA tournament. And if this young guy is just as good as me, and he's going to be around for 3 or 4 more years, maybe coach doesn't need me as much. And so you get those egotistical thoughts in your head. Like, you know what? I want to play more. And it may only seem like 3 minutes, but maybe that's his thinking. Painter's out there recruiting big men, youngster, he's going to. And he's going to bring in guys that are going to be as good as what he has on the roster. He's not going to bring in somebody worse. I mean, they may turn out to be worse, but when you're looking at the paper, the film, you're like, man, this guy's good. This guy brings a lot to our team. So maybe that's where Haarms was. It's like, look, I put my time in. I don't see my last go-round at Purdue as fruitful. And again,
Right.
to Kevin, we have to look at it from this standpoint. Where did Purdue finish in the Big Ten? Big Ten's a competitive. I mean, Purdue's not near the top anymore. They
Right.
faltered and fell to the middle to below middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Not where they were 3 years ago.
Oh,
So maybe he's
last year they
Yeah.
were they had a chance to. They should have beaten Virginia, who won the title.
Should have. Didn't happen.
But that team was fun. That was a really
and that's where Haarms made his name in that tournament. People learned of who Haarms was in that tournament. And so, you look at that and he's like, well, I had that success. And now I look at last year and I averaged not even 10 points a game, and Garza's there. Maybe he wants to go somewhere else where he can be near the top of the conference and be guaranteed a chance at a title run. Because right now, Purdue, Kevin, where they've fallen, they're not winning a title next year. I mean, things could fall into place. I mean, it's not impossible, but they're not going to be a favorite. I mean, right now you're looking at a team that'll probably be voted to be finished 6th, 7th in the Big Ten, maybe 5th.
Maybe. Yeah.
They're not going to be near the top though.
Right.
And maybe that was part of his decision.
There's not huge expectations there, and if he knows that he can get interest as a 7-3 productive enough big guy that can come off the bench and go to Duke and have a chance at winning a title, or going to Duke or going to Kentucky or going to Kansas or wherever, and being that guy to help, propel an already potential Final Four team into a national title team, that's huge. Whether it's getting a bunch of more minutes or not, if you're not feeling great, if your minutes went down from sophomore to junior year at Purdue, and you can at least get those same kind of minutes, be the same kind of impactful player for a Kansas, and make a legitimate title run, why not? I don't fault him in that thinking at all. All it takes is one really good team who needs another big, even just off the bench, like I said, to be very productive and helpful and help your defense, and he can be seen as a commodity coming in. Any team that brings him in and he ends up choosing, obviously they want him. Purdue is saying, we don't necessarily need you anymore. Your minutes went down. Well, okay, Kansas says they actually want me. So I think I'll go there. So he has that luxury. He is a good enough player. He's not great. He's not Garza. He's not.
Yeah, and he's not going to be an All-American wherever he goes. Even for example, I'm living in Western PA right now. If he went to Pitt, he would probably be the big man in the middle for Pitt.
Right.
He'd probably be the man, but he's still not going to be an All-American. Right. But he would be the man, and he'd probably get about 25 minutes a game, 26, maybe more.
Oh, yeah. Right. It's
especially at Pitt. But again, he's not going to choose a Pitt. I mean, that would, to me, that would be kind of like the McGowan's thing. You went from Pitt to Nebraska. Is that really an upgrade? I mean, there has to be more to that story than, I just want to go to a better team, because you didn't go to a better team. And that would be the same thing. If Haarms all of a sudden came out and said, I'm going to Pittsburgh, I would be scratching my head like, you left Purdue to go to Pitt. It would be like, that to me is not the right move. But if all of a sudden we see you went to Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, even, I know you're a Duke fan, so I know you'll cringe at North Carolina. I mean, North Carolina is major rebuilding, but North Carolina has some younger pieces, and they could rebound next year. I mean, but you look at it from the standpoint, and I think you know where I'm at. If he's not going to go to one of these major schools with a chance to be near the top of a conference, I'm going to scratch my head and say, why the heck did you leave Purdue then? You put yourself in the same situation. So we'll see what happens. What else you got?
That's it for me. It's, you would assume that he chooses a powerhouse program, but even if he chooses like an Oregon that's been, around that 5-6-ish seed range consistently, and I guess that's kind of where Purdue's been outside of this past year. Like the last few years, Purdue's been good. Oregon's been good. I'm trying to think of others. Oklahoma State usually is good. Just around top 25 level teams. For whatever reason I can't. And Iowa State usually is good. Hoiberg left and did his thing in Chicago, and Iowa State's been a little bit rebuilding since then. But those teams that are basically always in the tournament, they're never huge factors. But all it takes is one upset, and boom, you're in the Final Four. So I think he could join a place like that where he could be seen as the guy on the interior. I don't think he's going to be a star wherever he goes unless he goes to, one of those, not even a Pitt. I don't think he'd be the star. But in any case, it'll be interesting to see where he winds up, especially with all the attention he's getting. So should be interesting.
Getting a lot of it. Getting a lot of it for not a household name.
That's the thing. It's funny how much interest a guy that averaged 8 and 4 and 2 blocks. He's 7'3".
That's why he's getting the interest, youngster. He's 7'3".
Right. But it's interesting how much attention he gets, and this name gets so much more attention than a graduating senior point guard from Wright State who averages 17 and 8 and is absolutely dominant in his conference, and he goes to Gonzaga, and it's just like, oh, Gonzaga got a really good Wright State player, and you'd never think anything of it again until you actually are watching your favorite team against Gonzaga, and then he's their starting point guard, and it's like, holy crap, where'd this guy come from? But a guy like Matt Haarms, who averages 8 and 4, it's like, oh my God, where's he going to go? Is he going to go to Kansas? Is he going to go to Duke? And he gets all this publicity. Meanwhile, a guy who's way more.
Because 7'3" guys do not grow on trees.
Right. But it's also coming from Purdue as opposed to coming from Wright State. Oh, coming from Wright State as a graduate transfer. That's nice. He dominated who knows what conference. Who cares? That's kind of the thought, the immediate thought fans have. I know that's the thought that I partially have too. Obviously, they're a quality player if Gonzaga wants you. But it's interesting when a quality player from a Purdue decides to transfer.
Well, and I will also say this, and I was looking at the time, like, man, we've probably been on this show for 2 hours. It's only been a little over an hour.
Yeah.
It seems like we've been talking a lot longer. That's a good thing. But when I look at it, Kevin, I think part of it is, too, you got Haarms, Purdue, and then you tack on at the end of that, Purdue's in the Big Ten. And we have sat here for, 2 years now and said the Big Ten is the best basketball conference in America. And I truly believe that. And so you've got a guy, he doesn't have spectacular numbers, but he plays at Purdue and he plays in the Big Ten, which means that night in and night out you're playing good competition and you're not playing against, cupcake teams.
Right.
We even talked about Nebraska and Northwestern, not a lot of wins. They were still scrappy, and you still had to play your A game because they would hang in the game, and if you all of a sudden just took them lightly, they're going to give you a game.
Yeah.
But they probably weren't going to win. But I think part of that is it's a Big Ten player, like you're saying. It's not a team from the Horizon League or the Verizon League, which I will joke about, a Verizon League. It's the Big Ten. And coaches know that if you're playing minutes in the Big Ten and being productive, you're a good player.
Yeah.
Because the Big Ten is competitive.
Without
That's all I got, youngster. What else you got?
Same here. I'm done. Follow us on Twitter at YoungsterOldMan. Follow us on Facebook.com/YoungsterOldMan. YoungsterOldMan.home.blog is our homepage. TheGrowingTruth.com obviously hosts all of our Big Ten shows. And then, again, on Twitter, Twitter.com/YoungsterOldMan. Vote in that poll. Also give us a follow. Give us a comment. You love us, you hate us, doesn't matter. It's great to hear feedback.
Nobody hates us, youngster.
That's true. That's impossible. But seriously, Twitter.com/YoungsterOldMan. That's where all of the shows that Troy and I do get posted. So whether it's weekly Big Ten, whether we're talking NFL free agency for different markets around the country, we do a number of things. It's all fun.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff out there. Lots of stuff. before we end the show, youngster, if anybody's made it this far, I do want to let everybody know, say thank you to your essential workers that are out there. I've really just, I've been watching the news, had today off, so I had a chance to, I normally don't get to watch the morning local news, and I know that, a lot of people have been affected by the coronavirus with businesses closing, a lot of people struggling for food, and we've got a lot of essential workers out there, and a lot of the nurses, I have a hospital account, and I go in and I know that they're really putting themselves at risk, and you hear about it, but make sure you thank your essential workers. So that's why I said, youngster, I do thank you. Grocery workers right now are very important because people need food. So, again, thank you to all the essential workers. If you're listening in, thank you. Hope you enjoyed the show today. For the youngster, I am the old man. We'll get back at you next week. Same place, same time. Have a good weekend. Happy Easter to everybody that celebrates Easter. We'll talk to you soon.